Hi homeschoolers, welcome to the lesson about using artificial intelligence for creating your own adventures and field trips. So, artificial intelligence here is able to do amazing things for us, right? We look at all kinds of things in this course. We look at using AI for creating stories. We look at using AI as a specialized instructor that will teach us exactly what we are trying to learn and in the style that we want to learn it. We will use AI to make books and write computer code. We will use AI to make images and even audio with voices. So today, I actually wanted to show you one of the things you can do with artificial intelligence in just the real world. So going on an actual adventure. So let's take a look at what AI can do for field trips and adventures. It's actually very powerful for this. Hey, Chris, how are you doing out there? Is the adventure going pretty good?
Yeah, I really appreciate the shade or indoor parameters that you set for this adventure today because it is very, very hot out here.
Yeah, so I sent field trip enthusiast Chris out on an AI guided field trip, and let's look at how he got there, right? Let's look at the steps that instructor Chris took to send field trip Chris out there on this adventure. First, we're going to look at the free version of ChatGPT and how well it did for creating this field trip. All right, so here we are in ChatGPT. This is the one that is not connected to the internet. This one just is based on its own training data. So what I'm going to do is paste a prompt that I've saved in here. It says, you are an expert on everything in Nashville, Tennessee. Please create an itinerary for seeing some colonial era history that starts at 10 a.m. and lasts 2 hours. So let's see what GPT does for this on the 3.5 model. So it actually is creating a 2-hour tour for us. So we have it starting at the Tennessee Capitol. Take a stroll around the grounds, admire the neoclassical architecture while learning about its role in Nashville's colonial era history. Then visit the Tennessee State Museum. It has a state history from pre-colonial times through the colonial era and beyond, which is awesome. And then exploring Fort Nashboro, which was a replica of the original settlement in 1779. So this is the output from ChatGPT, right? So let's then go over to Bard, which is Google's AI, and give it the exact same prompt and see what kind of results we get back from Bard. Bard, by the way, it sometimes makes stuff up these days. It might be better by the time you see it, but it also includes like some pretty rich images and other things that pretty much Google just is really good at having access to just because it's Google. So it has us starting at Fort Nashboro State Park. This is one of the same places that the ChatGPT has us going. It also has us going to the Tennessee State Museum, which is awesome. And it actually has us going to a restaurant for lunch afterwards. So it knows that we might be hungry after our tour, which is pretty cool. So this is the Bard version. And here's some additional details about the destinations. So next, I want to show you a third AI model here. This is Microsoft's Bing. This is based on the GPT-4 model, and let's see what we get back from Bing. All right, so it's thinking, and now it's searching the internet. It tells you what it's doing. It suggests starting at Tennessee State Museum and then visiting Fort Nashboro. And it also mentions the Belmont Mansion, which was built in 1853. So that's not really colonial era history. But it's like, if you like history, you might like this, which is kind of cool. There's a pretty short response here. It doesn't really create an itinerary at all for us. So it's not as, it doesn't feel like it went to as much effort as some of the other ones. And finally, the fourth option here, I'm going to show you what it looks like when we do the GPT-4 with browsing. You get this with ChatGPT Plus, which I highly recommend that all homeschoolers have access to because, yes, it's $20 a month, but the amount of just flexibility and intelligence that you get with this, it's just a huge amount of value. I use this every single day. You get web browsing, you get plugins, and you get to save your chats over here. So that is ChatGPT Plus. I don't get anything for that or anything. I'm not an affiliate or anything, but I just find it to be highly useful. All right, so this is the web browsing model. It's actually not browsing the web for this search. I have another one that generally tends to make it go and actually look things up on the internet for us, but this is GPT-4. This is currently the most intelligent artificial intelligence that is publicly available. It's very powerful. And yes, we're using it to create a field trip itinerary, but it is capable of so many other things like writing code, writing incredible stories. It's able to teach in any style you want it to. So this GPT-4 is absolutely amazing. What we're doing with it right now is just like, it's like a pinky finger task for it. It's very light for GPT-4. It's capable of lots of crazy things, which we look at actually later in this course. So this has us going to the Tennessee State Museum and Travelers Rest Plantation and Museum. So this was built in 1799, so it actually gives us some pretty cool info on the dates of these things here. So Tennessee State Museum, that is a consistent result in all of these options, and you might not necessarily want to try all 4 of these options if you're just like, hey, I want to go on a field trip or an adventure, but this is just to give you an idea of what all of them do. You'll probably find that one of them is your favorite. Some of them are stronger in other areas of the world than others. This example of Nashville is a pretty typical example of the U.S. Southeast, and which of the AIs are particularly good in those areas. So next, I want to actually show you that you can actually put some constraints on here, because like every family has their different needs, right? So for example, my family, we would like to bring our dog, so we would like make something dog friendly, or maybe it's a really hot day. Today in Nashville, we actually have a heat advisory because it's supposed to be incredibly hot today. And other things, like you might not want to spend any money on this. Like there's no need to spend money sometimes to have an adventure. So that could be another restriction that we could add for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of things that we can do with just adding some restrictions to this, and we'll see how the AI handles this. So you notice that I still have that same first couple of sentences where you're an expert on everything in Nashville, Tennessee, which, by the way, that is a system message. And we talk more about system messages later in the course, but basically it kind of primes the AI to do something specific for us. So the system message is, you're an expert on everything in Nashville, Tennessee. I would like to see some colonial era history starting at 10 a.m. and lasting 2 hours. Now we've added restrictions here. Please prioritize shaded or indoor destinations because it's going to be super hot. And I would like it to be free. All right, cool. So let's send this and see what we get. See if we get different recommendations. So this is the free ChatGPT, and it is giving us these options. It says, so here's a revised itinerary. So it has us going to the State Museum, which actually had us starting at the State Capitol earlier, and it just kind of reversed those two. And it says the museum is indoors, providing shade in a comfortable environment, which is great. And then it has some other options here. This one, it says it has numerous shaded areas to relax and enjoy the outdoors, which is great. And it says that this itinerary focuses on free and shaded or indoor destinations for your comfort. All right, so this is free ChatGPT. Let's see how Bard does with the same prompt and see if it changes what it offers us. So here we go. And Bard's pretty fast. It should finish this request quickly. And it does. So it has us starting at the Frist, which this is an example of Bard kind of like honestly making things up a little bit. This museum has a rotating exhibit of American art, including a number of paintings and sculptures from the colonial era. It makes up what's at the Frist Museum. I have checked this, and Bard will just be like, hey, this is what somebody wants, and this is kind of where they want to go, so I'm just going to say that what they want is at this place. So just know that Bard will literally just hallucinate and dream and give you a result that is, and we talk about LLMs and how this happens later in the course and why this is an issue. But this is not true. So we're going to skip going to the FRIST. Tennessee State Library and Archives. So this is cool. This is true. Collection of historical documents. Yeah. Tennessee State Library and Archives. So we can actually use this one, and it's in a large air-conditioned reading room, the library is. So that's cool. Finish your tour with lunch at the Pancake Pantry. Okay, I have been to the Pancake Pantry, and I can confirm that that is a good suggestion. So good job on the lunch suggestion from Bard. Now let's go over to Bing here and ask it for the same thing. Again, this is the same request, but we're asking it for shade or indoors, and we also want it to be free. So let's see what Bing does here. And it did a little bit of a Bing search for us. It recommends a state museum, which is great, which it sounds like we're going to the state museum. I bet that's where Field Trip Chris was earlier when we checked in with him at the front of this lesson. All right, so it's free to enter, but that's just like one thing. Come on, Bing. We want a little bit more. And yeah, honestly, I could spend 2 hours at the Tennessee State Museum because I love museums, but I would have wanted to see a little bit more effort from Bing. So now let's go back to the web browsing GPT-4 top-end ChatGPT here and see what it does when we give it this question here. And it's actually, see where it says browsing the web? It did not actually do that for our initial prompt. So this adding the shaded or indoor destinations and being free, that makes it have to not just look at its training data, but also look at the internet. And we talk about how training data and large language models work actually in one of the first lessons. And actually we need to click retry response here because sometimes it gets stuck. And we learn how this actually works. But right now it's searching Bing because Microsoft and OpenAI have a partnership, and they have integrated their search tool and OpenAI's intelligence model. And sometimes the results are powerful and sometimes they're kind of a little bit wanting, like this one here from Bing. It only gave us one suggestion. All right, so it's reading the internet, and you can click this down arrow to see what it's doing. So it did a search, free historical sites in Nashville, Tennessee, and it read a web page that says 38 free things to do in Nashville, and it got stuck again. So we're going to click regenerate response. We'll give it 3 tries, but sometimes, and it really depends on the day, and it's kind of funny that it's happening, it's actually not even the day, it's like down to the hour or the minute whether it's going to be good. But it's funny that it's happening for you to see here during our lesson. So I actually have an example already recorded of how it did with this earlier, so I'm going to pull that up now. All right, I actually kind of want to show you this working again because it's pretty fascinating this time. It's doing a bunch of different searches here, and it's actually reading different websites. And you see here where it says thinking. It's thinking, that's so interesting to me that an AI has to think about what it's doing. And the way LLMs work, it does take a little while for it to think. It's very similar to how a human brain works. So let's see what this comes up with. So it's giving us kind of a report here. It did some research, and it's telling us about some of the amazing things that it found. It said not everything's free, but it wasn't able to find a suitable free colonial era historic site that meets all your criteria within the time limit. All right. So this is GPT-4. It's not giving itself too much space to return results that we might want, and it's actually still trying to help us out here. So I know I said GPT-4 is a super smart thing. Some things it's just not that good at yet, and one of these things is going to be sometimes creating an adventure for us. I've had it actually create pretty good ones for me. You just have to try it and see what you get. So let's see. It mentions some things we didn't hear of here, which is cool. So I guess that's pretty neat. But let's go back to our GPT-3, and what we're going to do is we're going to choose our adventure. We're going to find out where Field Trip Chris actually ended up going. Then we're going to jump through time and space and actually see what he's checking out and see what he thinks. See if the AI was able to do the things that he asked for. So shaded or indoor destinations, free, starting at 10 a.m. and lasting 2 hours. Let's see how this works out. So it recommended visiting the Tennessee State Museum and then exploring the Tennessee State Capitol, and then discover the Bicentennial Capitol Mall State Park. So let's see how much of this we actually get to. I actually love adventures, which is why there is a Field Trip and Adventures Chris, and why he's out there across time and space having this adventure right now. So let's jump to what he's doing and see how this turns out.
So the reason that I actually picked colonial era history here in Nashville is just because it's actually pretty hard to find. There's not a whole lot of colonial era things that happened here in Nashville. And the State Museum here is really one of the only places you can find much. So I went on Google, like the old way of starting an adventure, the old way of creating a field trip. And I searched colonial era history in Nashville, and I searched see colonial era history in Nashville, and I also searched the same prompts that we used for artificial intelligence, and it actually didn't even bring up anything related to the Tennessee State Museum, and really nothing at all. So AI is a really good example of using the intelligence, the comprehension of what we're looking for, and then going and finding that, and then creating an itinerary and adventure for us. I'm pretty pleased with the results of this. I highly recommend you trying this out. Probably something a little bit easier for it to get right than colonial history in Nashville. So check it out, and I'd love to hear what kind of results y'all get with AI as your field trip guide. Love y'all. Thank you so much for taking this course. And I would encourage you to enroll in the full membership, because each week I will be researching a topic about artificial intelligence, and it will come with an activity as well. And that will come to you every single week. It's going to be fresh. One reason that it's a membership is because artificial intelligence is changing so fast that anything recorded today, in a year or so, it'll be obsolete. So keeping you up to date, empowering you with amazing new tools, and I'm really enjoying it. I love y'all. Thank you so much for being here.